Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education inside the classroom and out. My name is Nick Simone.
And I'm Marc Isix.
Marc, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well because my special guest today is none other than Marc Isix. Marc is the co-host of this podcast and now the author of two books, including his most recent, Captivate, Engaging and Empowering Students in a World of Digital Distractions. And now that Marc is beginning his journey on the educational circuit, sharing his brilliance, his genius, and his expertise to other schools, I thought this would be a great opportunity to ask him questions about what he's learned, who he's met along the way, and what his plans are for the future. So that's what I wanted to do today, Dr. Isix. Are you okay with
Wow.
that?
I am. I mean, wasn't what I was anticipating, but let's roll with it. Sure.
Absolutely. So do you want to first talk a little bit about what made you want to write the second book?
This is my 31st year in education, and I feel like I have a lot to share with educators everywhere. I feel like I've learned a lot. I've learned from my successes. I've learned even more from my failures. And I just feel like I have something to offer in terms of pushing people's thinking and giving them some different perspectives to kind of attack the challenge of educating kids. And now we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century, and just want to contribute to the conversation. So it was really like a labor of love, and I'm happy to share it with folks.
Well, as somebody who has read the book more than once, several times, it's absolutely incredible. And I know that one of your major issues is that in order to really engage students, we have to grab their attention within, I get you used the 3-second rule.
Mhm.
So if you had to tell somebody, in 3 seconds, of course, I'll give you a little bit more than that.
Thank you.
But what is somebody who reads your book going to get out of that experience?
Well, hopefully a couple of things. Again, part of the book is spent trying to challenge conventional ideas and to also make people aware and reflect on the reality, which is very often there's cognitive entrenchment found in schools. And we have to be willing to challenge those cognitive biases if we're going to move forward and tackle this tremendous responsibility of being able to educate kids in literally a world of digital distractions, which is the subtitle of the book. And so one is to challenge your own conventional ways of thinking and traditional ways of thinking. Not that they're bad at all. It's not about bad or good. It's about levels of effectiveness. Sometimes when you bring up the word change, people immediately retreat because it makes it sound like there's something wrong about what they're doing. I don't want people to think that, but we do have to challenge ourselves to become more effective every year of our careers, regardless of whether there's life-altering technology or not. And the other thing would be, in the book, it's filled with a lot of practical ideas to show you how to captivate students. There's so much competition for the attention of our students. If we're not actively, aggressively intentionally pursuing our students' attention, it will be won by a host of other entities, and it won't be us. And then we will suffer as a result, and they will suffer as a result.
I love the answer, but here's the part of the response that I think is what separates you from everybody else. And in fairness, we know, a lot of people who are trying to make an impact in education. But when you say it's not a matter of bad versus good, it's a matter of level of effectiveness. Here's why I think that is what distinguishes you from others. There can be an approach that is very good, but it's good for 2 of the 29 kids in the classroom. So somebody would say, well, look, so-and-so, fill in the blank, the names of the students. It's working for them. Why can't it work for everybody else? And I think you're just much more realistic in the sense that you understand how incredibly diverse our students are in so many different ways. And there's a better approach that's just going to be more effective to reach more of them. And I know maybe I'm speaking, abstractly now, but I really believe that's what separates you, is that once we get your goal is to get all of the kids interested in the beginning.
Exactly.
So once we do that, then we can challenge kids at different levels. But if teachers think, well, this worked for 5% of the class, I'm just going to keep doing it that way, and the rest of them come along. It doesn't work that way. And you don't make them feel bad about that. You use that phrase. It's a matter of level of effectiveness. And I really think that's what the message that has to get through to people. And I love it. And I think that,
Thank you.
yeah. And, your ability to take any lesson idea and craft something at the beginning to motivate the major concept of the lesson and what teachers are trying to convey to students. That's, I tell everybody, nobody can do it as well as you.
Wow, that's very kind.
Yeah. Well, it's the truth.
This is a really important moment in the history of education and the history of our nation. I want us to all together rise to meet the moment. And sometimes that might mean having challenging and difficult conversations, and also might mean moving past some of the conventional ideas that maybe got us here. And that's okay, because we're living in unconventional times. Technology is so powerful. It literally is changing everything or many things. And we shouldn't run from that. We should embrace that. But we also have to be realistic. That part of the book is really just being realistic. Like you said, I want us to recognize that all of our students are coming in distracted. All the adults are coming in distracted. So I just want us to be able to focus on the matter at hand, which is trying to give our kids the greatest opportunity possible.
Yeah. And too many of them feel as if they're being, failed miserably. When I heard it was last year and a kid used the acronym school, 7 cruel hours of our lives. And, there are some people when you talk about, cognitive entrenchment, but there are some people that think, well, school used to be boring and we got through it also. But I just don't think that's the approach we should be taking anymore. School should be as exciting as it could possibly be, inspiring, motivating. It should be the best 7 hours of their lives. And I
Right.
think that's the essence of what you're trying to get across is, we can make it fun, we can make it enjoyable, and we could also make it rigorous and relevant and meaningful. When we talk to people who are not in education and they have a question about, well, how are kids today? And my response lately has been the kids who are thriving are more talented than they've ever been.
Absolutely.
But I feel like the kids who are struggling, it's because their talents are not allowed to emerge in the way the educational system is structured today. I just don't think it's their fault. And what's happening is that's leading to a gap. They all want to point to like the achievement gap. Well, you got to determine what it is you want people to achieve. We can't
Right.
just say college and career readiness, but everything we're doing is geared towards going to college.
Right.
Determine
Or
what
to
else.
take a test.
Right,
And most careers don't involve tests.
right. And again, to go back to the work you're doing, why I find it so powerful is that your goal is, you always talk about the hook, but your goal is let me get kids interested. Because if I can't get them interested, I have no hope. Doesn't
Correct.
matter how effective, how knowledgeable you are as a teacher. If they're not paying attention,
That's right.
there's nothing you can do. So your work is predicated on, all right, kids are going to walk into the class and I have X number of seconds to make it relevant and making it meaningful. Now, once you do that, then it's all about sparking their curiosity, challenging them
That's right.
appropriately,
That's right. Rigor.
making it relevant, making it meaningful.
Hmm.
We can't necessarily change the aspects of education that really do have our hands tied. Whenever I
Right.
just think about that, a kid goes from a calculus lesson to a physics lesson to an English lesson to a social studies lesson to a foreign language lesson all day long.
Hmm.
And they're supposed to remember all of that,
Hmm.
24 hours later.
Right.
But what yours, and again, I think we both agree that it'd be nice if we could change that setup, but we can't, at least
Right.
not right now. What we can do is get kids excited to be in the classroom. And that's
Right.
everything you're doing.
And here's the reality. The world that we live in is a For You page driven world. We used to live in a world where we were told what to do and when to do it. And that's why the do now in some ways made sense when it was implemented. If you wanted to watch your favorite television show, like for me growing up, it was Happy Days. That was Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on ABC, not at 7:30, not at 8:31. It's like if you were there, then you saw it. And if you weren't there, then you didn't. So you were told what to do. And then you could either reap the reward or you missed it. And if I missed it, I had to wait until the summer in order to see it.
Right.
And if I missed it over the summer, I probably would never see it. And that would be it. Spend the rest of my life, right? And then the VCR came around, then the DVR came around, and then YouTube, changed the world completely. And same thing with music. If I wanted to listen to a song, I had to take two buses. I had to take the B49 and then the Avenue U bus in Brooklyn to get over to Nobody Beats the Whiz across the street from King's Plaza and go buy a cassette and then go home and then hope that I liked the music that was other than the radio hit. That was how it was. But now I could listen to anything I want, stream anything I want, whenever I want, watch as much or as little as I want, whenever I want it. So the notion that, our kids are going to come to school at a prescribed time in the day for a prescribed number of minutes and learn a particular thing, and then the bell will ring and they move on. Like, it just doesn't work in the life that we live. But that's the system. So we have to operate within the system that's there for the time being. But I truly believe, and I go into this in the book, that there are barriers to entry when a student walks into a room, any classroom, any student. And it could be something as small as they're just, they're not feeling well today, or they could have a learning disability, or they could have an absolute fear of a subject, or they could have a complete lack of desire to be at school, or they could be starving. They have so many different barriers that stand between you as the teacher and the student in their seat. So I feel like at the beginning of a lesson, the job of a great educator is to smash as many of those barriers as they possibly can in order to get kids, on board. That doesn't mean that you've solved the problem, but it just means that for the moment you've taken the opportunity to strike and to create interest immediately. But if you have a school-phobic student or a student who doesn't like science and they walk in and on the screen, there's an aim about photosynthesis, and that's the first thing that they see, you're like basically triggering them and asking them to disengage with your lesson. So my approach is, why do we have to have that on the screen when they walk in? Why can't there be something engaging and relevant that relates conceptually to what we're going to be teaching, but doesn't necessarily have to have all the jargon just yet? And we're going to use all of the jargon, and they're going to be responsible for all of it in all of its rigor and everything else. But I'm just saying, let's not start there. The aim can go up in 2 minutes, but it doesn't have to go up right away. It can go up when it has meaning and you've motivated it. And that's one of the things that when I'm working with teachers, I'm trying to instill that there's a value there. And I have to tell you that they come back and they say, and I don't want this to sound in any self-aggrandizing way, but they come back very appreciative because they feel the difference when they start a lesson with the motivation versus when they start it with the aim or the learning objective on the screen and a traditional do now. They feel it, the kids feel it, and it's so palpable that they literally come back and say thank you.
Yes, well, I'll say it because I've heard the following words come out of people's mouth all the time, and those words are, "How does he make it look so easy?" They love their time working with you, and again, I know that your best work is one-to-one, small group, meeting with teachers, helping them lesson plan, but I'm also very grateful that you are now speaking at numerous conferences. You've spoken at various opening ceremonies for school districts. So can you talk a little bit about how you've been received at these conferences and school districts and, what some of the teachers have said to you? You did refer to the barriers to entry, and anybody that's seen you knows that your slide deck is second to none. It is a work of art.
I'm a little obsessive compulsive with that,
but it's so impressive. You're putting a lot of pressure on all of us to try to step up our Canva game. And your slide on the barriers to entry is by far the best part of the presentation.
Thank you.
But really, what type of response have you received from people so far when you conclude your presentations?
Well, first of all, I'm very grateful for even having the opportunity to work with educators in different districts and, across the country and speaking at conferences and working with people. So that is really such a blessing. And I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity. There's been a great reception to the work, and a lot of people have come to me after to, express their interest in learning more. And some people have gone and read the book afterwards and reached out to me and said very, very, very kind things. So that's been wonderful. I just love sharing ideas and trying to, like I said before, push people's thinking, because I'm always pushing my own thinking and I'm always challenging myself to think differently, think more innovatively, and try to create more impact for the work that we're doing. You and I have been talking about this a lot lately because, we're getting up there. We're over 30 years in education each at this point. I'd like to hope that we feel really young and feel very vibrant and everything. We also understand that there's a reality here, that there is a clock that does tick, and the amount of time that you have to make an impact in this field is finite. As Teddy Roosevelt used to say, like in life, you have to hit the line and hit it hard. And I'm very proud of the work that we're doing, collectively, because I feel like we're bringing that energy and that intensity, but in the most positive way and supportive way possible. And this way, whenever the game is over, at least we know that, everything was kind of left on the field. But to get back to your original question, like, it's been very well received, and I'm very fortunate and grateful for all the kind words that people have shared with me, all the different places that I've been so far.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the impact you're having, and you've only really just started to have these speaking engagements. But whenever I talk to people about teachers, listen, I have this is all anecdotal, but there's a small group or maybe a larger group of teachers that are just so extraordinary. They
Absolutely.
go so above and beyond, and they are motivated by forces that nobody can really
That's right.
identify.
That's right.
And I just think that there's a very, very small number of teachers that are really ineffective. It's that large other group who I think are just looking for the spark that you give them. They're talented, but it's a tough job, and I think that they get beaten down by it very easily. It can really wear on you. And I think what you offer is, first, you acknowledge that it's a difficult job.
Yes.
And I think they appreciate that. It's a job that you can still do. When you have the experience, you keep talking about, the 30 years, but it's 30 years that spanned from, purple ink mimeographs
Mm.
to, airdropping and everything
And
in between,
and ChatGPT.
and in ChatGPT. So I think it's those teachers. I really believe in the ability of teachers
Yeah.
to change kids' lives, but I can see how easily the profession could get to them. And I think
Hmm.
that's what you offer, is this spark to reignite people's passion. Because anybody who went into teaching, they had to have gone in for the purpose of wanting to help kids. I mean, yes, I'm sure there are other benefits that they were looking forward to, but you have to be able to want to help kids. And what you give them is, I think, like that, like turning the light switch back on again for some of them.
And it's not just classroom teachers. I have to tell you, one of the most
Yep.
impactful presentations that I made not too long ago, I was at the School Administrators Association for New York State working with assistant principals. And those folks, they didn't get into it to just collect data on checklists when they walked into classrooms. That's not the fire in their belly. And you can get worn down because very, very easily the menial can overwhelm the meaningful in the administrator's world. And to try to find opportunities to flip that around. Now you still have to do the menial work because there are roles to play and they have to be filled. And very often, the admin are the ones that fill it, and it's very omnibus in terms of what your responsibilities are. That net gets even wider, and those responsibilities get even wider when you start to talk about more like rural schools where the one administrator might be everything from, the evening cleaner to the principal to the test coordinator to the CSE chair to the person serving food on the lunch line. Like they could literally be doing all of it. And so it's just necessary to remind folks not just like why they want to be in education, but like how they can go ahead and become more effective and really tap into the reason that they got into this business in the first place for. And so there's a lot of joy and satisfaction in doing that kind of work as well.
That's great to hear, because an effective administrator can really shape the culture of a building tremendously. And I think the key aspect of that for the work you're doing is convincing administrators to allow their teachers to take risks, because
Right.
not every brilliantly, or what you thought was brilliantly planned lesson is always going to work. And that's okay.
Right.
Okay to take those risks. I think but teachers need to hear that, particularly younger teachers. They really need to hear that, and not only hear it, but believe it.
Right.
And is that part of your presentation when you talk to administrators?
Oh my God, of course. Actually, one of the ideas that they love the most is something called the blank page exercise, which is something that I started doing a few years ago. So typically when you sit down and meet with a teacher and work with a teacher, traditionally or conventionally, it is in a post-observation setting, which is very evaluative and very Monday morning quarterbacky. Like, you sit down with the teacher and you say, well, you threw an interception and you really shouldn't throw an interception. And like everybody knows you don't want to throw an interception. Nobody intended to do that, but you're in the moment and life is happening, the classroom's happening in real time. And that's really challenging work, especially nowadays. So the nice thing about the blank page exercise is I get to sit down with a teacher one-on-one and start with literally a blank page. Instead of critiquing the work that was already done, we get to kind of work together to build something new. And that always creates fertile ground for a great conversation, talking about method, talking about approach, talking about tactics, talking about instruction, talking about what could be more effective and less effective. And then sharing my expertise and my experience, and then trying to not just show them what I'm capable of doing, but open up their eyes to what they're capable of doing. And that has been very, very effective and a really wonderful opportunity. And the most important part for me is that it shows the humility on my behalf that like some of my ideas will be horrendous, and that's okay. We'll start with a terrible idea and then we'll iterate until it becomes a better idea. And very often it's the teacher who comes up with the better version of the idea that I started with. And that's great. But the idea is like, how can we start thinking in certain directions and in certain ways? And then how do you turn that into a lesson plan that's effective, that you can go ahead and teach? And by the way, there have been occasions where I've worked with the teacher and then said to the teacher, would you like me to model this tactic or this approach or this technique in the classroom? And I'm happy to do it, because if I can't put myself out there and show that this works, then, then I'm being ingenuine, and I don't want to do that. So they'll take me up on it, and then I'll go in, and if they have, let's say, 2 sections of the same course, I'll teach one and they'll teach one. And then we'll meet after and we'll have a conversation about what worked and didn't work in mine and what worked and didn't work in theirs. And that just becomes another facet of their growth.
Yeah, and for anybody out there that might be hearing Mark speak for the first time, I can say from experience, the impact he's having on our school is that there's a large number of teachers who are collaborating on their lesson plan ideas, and it's almost become like a friendly competition of who can come up with the most engaging, innovative motivations to start a lesson. And that's really, to see that from my vantage point, is very exciting, because it's rubbing off on a lot of people, again, all throughout the building. It's like a game, really. And it
Hmm.
becomes how can we take our idea? And you talk about the blank page, and if I would assume like the blank page starts with, well, what is it you want to teach today? I mean,
Exactly right.
you have your end game in mind.
But there are two questions. And this is the second question is the one that's the hardest. The first question is, what are you teaching? That's relatively easy. What am I up to on my curriculum guide? What am I up to my pacing calendar? What was the standard? Whatever it is, that's what I'm teaching. However, the question that typically stumps people is when I ask them, what is this lesson really about? Is it really about photosynthesis? No, it's really about trying to figure out a way to feed yourself. That a kid can understand. You're home, no one else is home. You open up the pantry, nothing's there. What are you going to do? You're hungry. How do you turn that thing into something edible? How do you turn that egg into something that you could eat? Most kids won't crack it open and eat it raw, right? So you have to like figure out how to go through steps to go from point A to edible. And a plant has the same problem. And the plant is trying to solve it. And here's how the plant solves that problem. But conceptually, I understand from my perspective as this kid who has been in that situation probably, or I have to figure out how to feed myself. And now the plant is trying to feed itself. So that allows you this opportunity to find relevance and meaning, and then segue it into the thing that the kids didn't even know that they potentially had an interest in, because they didn't grasp it conceptually, because it's typically just attacked strictly from a curricular angle. And like you said before, the top 2 or 3 students, they could take that and run with it, no problem. But everybody else, maybe not. So this gives you a greater opportunity to bring everybody into the fray. And to go back to your point about working with the teachers in our school, what's kind of become a running joke is that I'll be walking the halls and there could be a teacher on hall duty who I've worked with before, and they'll literally stop me in the hall and say, Mark, I need a, which is like the symbol for hook now in the school. And so literally like in the hallway while they're on hall duty, I'll sit next to them or will just like jump at one of the common tables in the common area and just start going back and forth with ideas. And then I get very excited by that. And they see my enthusiasm. I think it rubs off a little bit on them. And then I'll check back with them a day or two later and say, well, so how did it go? And we just we have fun talking about instruction that way. And it should be joyful. Like learning should be joyful. The hard work should have an element of joy to it, because I feel like the way we have codified lesson planning and canned curriculum, we've taken a lot of the joy out of learning and teaching, and we have to bring it back.
Yeah, and the comments I've heard from so many of the young teachers, in our building is very straightforward, and it's, "Why did we have to wait to learn this? Why didn't we learn this approach, when we were in college?" They feel as if they were behind
Right.
April. And we don't need to segue into a discussion about what's happening in college because, in all honesty, we haven't been there in a very, very long time.
Fair.
Yeah, but that is a big part of the equation is the earlier we can teach teachers the appropriate way. You're talking about lesson plans. I mean, I see some lesson plans that are like 7 and 8 pages, but it's all irrelevant. And all you have to
Correct.
do is just look at it. I would ask somebody, "Well, explain to me how this is going to achieve the goal."
Can't. It
So,
can't.
and I think
And then what will happen is they won't do it. As soon as the professor disappears out of
right,
the picture, they will not do it. Or if they're required to do it, they will use a bot, and the bot will create the lesson plan.
yeah, and that's the other obvious, response there.
Right.
But I think young teachers are excited when they feel like the light bulb goes off on their
Right.
head. Like, "Now I get it. Now I understand that this is the better approach."
Because
And
you get to have fun this way, Nick. I mean, one of the things that I loved most about teaching this way was that there was a sense of gamesmanship with my students. Like if I would start with a car commercial, and I would start with a line of questioning after they watched the car commercial, they're trying to figure out like what
right,
this has to do with history and where I'm going with this. And just the fact that they're trying to figure me out is the win.
yeah. Well, that's the ultimate. That's
That's
not
the
just the
win.
win. That's game 7. That's No, it is, because when kids are coming into class trying to figure out where you're going,
Right.
people talk about engaging students and they wanna mention the Danielson model, or whatever the models they use. Okay,
Yeah.
but what does that look like? And
Right.
you just described what it looks like.
Right.
It looks like a kid in a classroom who is thinking,
Exactly
who's
right.
not just sitting there in body, but not there in mind. And
Right.
your yeah, and approach, is exactly what, teachers should be doing.
And you bring up a great point, because we live in a time now where a lot of people are places in body and not in mind, because in mind, they are locked into their phone.
Right,
They are on YouTube, they're on their For You page, they're being fed the things that at least the algorithm thinks that they want. And so they might be there in the restaurant, but they're not really with you. They might be there, on the sideline with you, but they're not really there with you because they're otherwise engaged. And the same thing is true of students in the classroom. And I know a lot of states are banning phones and things like that, but then they're handing the kids tablets. So they'll watch their YouTube videos or other content or other distractions any way they can, because that's what addicts do. They figure out a way to get their fix. You can go ahead and try to take it away, but really the better solution is to try to cure the addiction. And one of the ways you do that is by replacing it with something positive that you could become interested in.
Well, you've had an illustrious career so far. You've been a remarkable teacher. I still don't think there's any administrator, assistant principal that can put a resume together of all the things you've done, but we'll save that, of course. But now, as you think about the next stage
Mm.
in your life, you've published 2 books, you've presented. What are some of the goals you have for whenever that next stage may begin?
Just kind of keep pushing forward and doing more of these kinds of things. I really enjoy writing. I really enjoy speaking. I enjoy working with people, meeting people from all over the country, all around the world. This podcast has been a tremendous opportunity to accomplish that. We together have met some incredible people from all over the place, people that I know we're very proud to consider friends now because of these relationships that we've formed on this podcast and using this medium. I feel the same way about the conferences that I go on and the opportunity to meet and work with people and interact with them. So more of that, more writing, more podcasts, more meeting people, more sharing ideas, and just, keep going because I've never been more optimistic about education than I am right now. And I know that sounds maybe a little bit odd to people because a lot of folks are folding up their tents in light of this new surge of technology and everything that's upon us. But I feel like we have the opportunity now to use technology as a lever to help us achieve the original goals of education, which is to really give students, give young people an opportunity to live extraordinary lives and be completely self-reliant and to think critically and analytically and to be able to synthesize information and make meaning of things that we teach them. So I feel like we've never been in a better position to accomplish all of those goals, but we have to use the technology properly and use the leverage properly. Right now, I think we're only doing that in small pockets, but I think there's a great opportunity to do that on a larger scale. And so I'd love to be part of that movement as well to try to really kind of scale the powerful leveraging of the technology because it's everywhere, but not being used, in my opinion, as effectively as it can be.
Well, I appreciate that. Several years ago, somebody told me that you can make a greater impact on kids as an administrator, and I was very reluctant to believe these people, and I just always wanted to have my 5 classes.
Hmm.
But now that I've seen the work that you've done firsthand, I think I'm a convert. I think I do see that, and I think, my dream would be for every single teacher in America to be able to work with you because I think it would transform education more than any initiative we've ever embarked upon. But with that being said, I'm really excited about the opportunities you've already had, and I really can't wait to hear about the future ones, because any school district that makes the choice to bring you in is going to benefit immensely from it.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And listen, it goes without saying that, you've been a tremendous part of that journey for me. It's like having a worthy rival, except we're not rivals. It's like a pace car that you have to keep challenging yourself to stay, ahead of. And so I owe a lot of it to you.
Well, you're the guest, so this is about you today. No, but
No,
of course it's
no,
been
you need, because you can't, nobody does this alone. Like you have to be motivated and you have to be inspired. And so the fact that you're still, after all these years, just as excited about the presentation that you gave today at your district meeting or the presentation that you gave to the department chair people in the building last week and the lesson that you're teaching for your ed equity course, like the fact that you're still getting excited about those things reminds me that, like, yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of growing to happen, and there's still a lot of kind of moving ahead to do, and just you can't rest. And so I appreciate that because it keeps me honest and it keeps me trying to stay at the top of my game.
I think that might be the most important message that administrators could hear is that no one person can do all of this on their own. You
No,
need, yeah, but there
mm-mm,
are some that think they can.
mm-mm,
And, those days are long gone.
right,
You really need, the best leaders are the ones that can identify the talent in the room and then unleash them.
right,
And the more talented people you want to surround yourself with, the better you will be. And I think
mm,
I know that's what's happening in our environment, but that's really what sparks greatness. When you hear, I told you about the video that the one and only Kate Crimmins shared today, and I can't wait to
right.
show it to you. But it's such a, she came up with this brilliant way of distinct for those obviously who don't know Kate Crimmins. I think she's been on the show though, right? She's never been. Wow.
No, Denise has Kate.
Okay, so we will have to. Okay, this is the goat list.
Yep.
But she was trying to distinguish between modeling an activity and actually doing like a read aloud, and the
Mm,
difference between how to model something and how to actually help kids to, really like, I'm not an English teacher, but to really like decode the meaning behind the words.
mm,
And she had this video of this woman, and you didn't expect it, who was talking about how to teach somebody how to shoot a free throw. And
Okay.
she starts by saying, okay, well, here's how you shoot a free throw. And she does it. She goes, that's modeling. Just look at me. I just shot a free throw. But then she says, no, 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 no. What you have to do is, and she goes through every step. Do you
Mm.
notice that my back is hunched forward? Do you notice I'm looking above the rim? Do you notice my hand? Like she goes through we can't just, and it was a brilliant video and it served her purpose completely. And then, of course, I stole it. But I think as teachers, we have to recognize that we can't just say, well, kids can't do this. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of things they can't do. There's a
Right.
lot of things that they've always not been able to do.
Right.
Our job
Right.
is to help them do that. And we
That's right.
can't we can't say, oh, well, you're using ChatGPT for your phone and say, well, don't use ChatGPT
Right.
or don't read off the slide, when you're presenting. How about we show them and walk them through the paces of
Right.
what they need to do to get to that point? Because
Right.
it's not as easy as just telling them to do something.
Right. And you're teaching them to think at the margin, which is a lost skill. To go back to what you were saying before, one of the authors that I cite in the book is an author named Matthew Barzin, and he wrote a book called The Power of Giving Away Power, and he talks a lot about the constellation mindset. And I had mentioned this to that group that I was talking about before at the School Administrators Association, and I said, listen, there are folks who use the back channels because every school has back channels that you work. And there are folks who use those back channels to consolidate power. And then there are people like me who use the same back channels, but I'm using those back channels to give away power. Basically say, yeah, you have the ability to do this. Now go ahead and be great doing that. You have the ability to do this. Now go ahead and be great doing that. And that makes in my opinion, that makes all the difference because you're using the back channels either way. But one, you're doing it to empower others. And the other is you're doing it to empower yourself. And those are typically the most feared and least effective leaders out there in any industry.
Right. That's phenomenal. So, well, like I said, anybody who gets your book, anybody who hears you speak will be instantly
Ah,
a more
thank you.
effective teacher, a more effective educator. You've done remarkable work. You are the hardest working person in this field as well. And I know you will continue on this amazing journey. So I congratulate you
Thank you.
on what you've done so far. And I look forward to what the future holds for you.